Have you ever felt that familiar tightening of your chest before an important exam, meeting, or TEDx presentation? I'm sure you all have, and I can also tell you that in every scenario, we treat it as an enemy, when in reality, it's more like a pestering companion. So, what if I propose that anxiety is something that we must learn to embrace and form a strong alliance with? Let's take a few steps back, though, and talk about what anxiety really is. Anxiety is a physical and mental state of negative emotion that generates fear in response to a threat. Seems complicated? Let me simplify it a bit. For any people here who have arachnophobia, essentially the fear of spiders, when we see a spider, we perceive it as a life or death situation, which then generates fear. But it doesn't always have to be a spider or an actual threat. It could be a thought or a what if scenario. This then causes a number of symptoms that impact our physical and mental health. Anxiety symptoms can be placed into three different categories: cognitive, which includes fear of failure or negative evaluation; physiological, which includes shortness of breath, tense muscles, and lightheadedness; and lastly, behavioral symptoms, which includes avoiding certain situations, pursuit of safety, and restlessness. Just think of these as what you fear, how your body reacts, and your response to these fears. But this is all what happens after your body has undergone certain processes. So, what actually happens biologically when we are anxious? Inside our brain, anxiety is not chaos, but coordination of multiple systems such as the endocrine, immune, and nervous system. This is our brain, and it consists of multiple sections that play a crucial role in our daily life. Here's what each section is in charge of. The orbitofrontal cortex codes information and regulates mood. The prefrontal cortex is involved in executive function like decision-making and regulation. The ventromedial PFC is involved in reward processing. And lastly, the most important when it comes to anxiety, the amygdala, as it detects any potential threats and activates the fear response. This is all part of your nervous system, consisting of the central nervous system made of the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system. The main systems I want to talk about today, though, are the sympathetic and parasympathetic, as these are directly linked with anxiety symptoms. Essentially, the sympathetic is involved in the fight or flight response, which you should all know, while the parasympathetic is involved in the opposite, the rest and digest response. So as soon as a threat is perceived and the fear response is activated, the HPA axis comes into play. Essentially, the hypothalamus sends out chemical messengers known as neurotransmitters to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland then communicates with the adrenal glands found in the kidneys to release cortisol. Why cortisol, you might ask? It helps with the body's response to stress, which is very important when anxiety-inducing situations happen. For the science experts or fanatics, let's delve a bit deeper. Cortisol regulates how your body uses glucose for energy. For example, for people with low blood glucose levels, cortisol signals to the liver to release stored glucose while also being able to make new glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. Cortisol also regulates physical responses which allow your body to prepare for action. Cortisol is therefore released when we experience one of the three following types of stresses: acute stress, chronic stress, and traumatic stress. This is why anxiety is your body's way of protecting you. Why is it helpful? Wait, did I write that correctly? Helpful. Anxiety? Society has taught us to be obsessed with control, and in this grand scheme, anxiety is the enemy that we must conquer and eliminate. War with anxiety, though, is pointless as it always wins in the end, which is why learning to work alongside it is my goal with this talk. Other than the safety it provides to keep us alive, which is its biological purpose, there are many other ways it is helpful. If used correctly, it can act as motivation for upcoming events. Or it can signal that something is wrong and requires extra attention. But most importantly, it can connect us to other people, as moderate levels of anxiety can increase oxytocin production, which encourages social connection. There are many other ways it is helpful, though. So most of the anxiety symptoms are not beneficent. So how do we maintain a balance? This is what balance can look like. Keeping your mind focused using exercise, as this releases endorphins that reduce stress. Calming your nervous system using meditation, as this allows you to stay present in the moment and to be more self aware. And challenging negative thoughts instead of believing them. Personally, most of the time, I find myself with piles of work that keeps on building every time. But before I find myself panicking over deadlines or stressing over how things are going to get done, I make a list of all the things that need to get done, therefore sectioning the workload into smaller, manageable pieces. Who knew 2 words could change my perspective on anxiety, but here we are. After reading about the let them theory online on a random day, I understood how important it is in terms of realizing that you hold more power than you think. You cannot control what people say or do, and that is perfectly okay. But stop spending your energy trying to. Don't let your external environment take control and influence your internal peace. So let them judge. Let them hate. Let them be wrong. Your nervous system shouldn't be overloaded with stimuli. Because as Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and philosopher, once said, you have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this and you will find strength. Up until now, I've only been talking about science and theories, but do these really help, especially since we're approaching our final exams? So, going back to my GCSE days, I remember studying day in and day out for exams, feeling confident that I knew the content inside out. However, during such tests, I would let anxiety take control, and I would second guess myself for the simplest of things, causing me to change the first correct answer and lose marks. That was when I knew I had to reframe my anxiety. One thing that my father always says that has stuck with me until now is that there is productive anxiety and unhealthy anxiety. Which seems obvious at first, but when was the last time you stopped to ask yourself whether being overly stressed really helped you? So anytime I feel overly stressed, I ask myself this: is this productive? Is this helping me reach my goal? If not, I take a moment to relax and think of how I can reframe this anxiety. Of course, this does seem a bit vague, especially when trying to deal with specific situations, so here's an example. Imagine you have just finished a successful study session and you feel more than prepared to perform in your exam the next day. But right before the exam, a small voice in your head is telling you, you're going to fail. You're going to forget the content. Is this going to change the fact that you have studied and you're more than ready to perform in this test? Is doubting yourself going to change the fact that you are confident and you know your capabilities in performing in that test? The answer is no. So why listen to that voice when you know who you are and you are able to do what you've set your mind to? This leads me on to my next point of finalizing your alliance with anxiety. Of course, changing the way we think about something, it is difficult, but it's definitely worth a try. Instead of thinking of anxiety as stress, think of it as excitement for something that really matters, as if it is energy which allows you to move forward and work towards your goals. In this way, I have been able to feel more confident about certain situations, allowing me to expand my comfort zone while also going out of it, as I know that that is the only way when wanting to gain experience and take on multiple opportunities. Alliance is built on boundaries and compassion, not dominance and control. So let anxiety be your helper, not the conductor of your life. Thank you.